This is the My Writing Diary podcast. I'm Bill Wong. Today I'm going to talk about what's left in writing the book. I have a tank battle of which I'm destroying probably about 500 or 600 T-72 and T-80 tanks. Also an air battle. The problem is, as I've mentioned before, I am not former military. I needed to learn the tactics for not only tanks, but also aircraft, and also the types of aircraft that would be appropriate for this situation. Then I'm going to talk about characters. I realized that I've been doing something calling it WIN, which is the wants, intents, and needs. First of all, the updates. I'm in the final 4,000 or 5,000 words of my novel. There's going to be a major tank battle of which the Egyptian and Syrian forces have attacked not only from the east, but also the north. The Israelis have been totally caught off guard and their defensive forces were destroyed. The Israeli leaders have sent a brigade of tanks, which is about 100 tanks, to support the defending forces. Unfortunately, because of cyber spoofing, they go to the wrong area, and Revka is the person who says, no, we need to go to where they're going to be, not where they are, because by the time we get there, they will be killed and destroyed. She needs to convince the commanding officer that she is right, and of course she is. They set up an ambush. I needed to learn about the various tank formations, everything from the wedge, I think it called an echelon, column, and the supporting vehicles, what they would do during the time of war. The Egyptians are attacking with more than 1,000 tanks to approximately 250. They are outnumbered 4-1. The Egyptians have equivalent Russian-made tanks, as opposed to in the 73 war, they had superior tanks. In addition, I needed to learn about aircraft. Initially, I was thinking about MiG-23s, 27s, and 29s. There is an aircraft called the Su-27, I think it's called the Flanker. The Su-27 Flanker is the Egyptian aircraft that they will be using in this battle. Types of maneuvers from a low yo-yo to a high yo-yo to a split S to a barrel roll to it's called a echelon. I needed to learn how to incorporate these types of aerial maneuver tactics in my scene. And I've broken my scene into 4 types of areas. 1, I needed to learn about the weapons, be it the Merkava 2 tank versus the T-80 Russian-made tank. In addition, I needed to have an understanding of the individuals who would be in this scene. Everyone from Revka to Rami to the commanding officer of the tank brigade. Then I needed to learn about not only the tanks, but also the type of weapons they would be using, the type of sidewinders, or the types of shells that would be in the tank. Then I had to create the scene. I'm going to be talking about those 4 areas, which is the weapons, the person involved, their tactics, and then create this type of scene or scenario. And there's probably about 4 or 5 of these types of scenes that I need to write, and I'm almost there. In addition, I need to have Rami and Revka in a situation where they could save one another. I probably have about 4,000 or 5,000 words left. This is something that is really, I should have done this months ago. I am a planner. I not only plan the type of characters, the acts, and the scenes, and the individual beats. And I have a spreadsheet for the characters. And the spreadsheet along the top has everything from their sex, to their organization, to their role, to their purpose, their exterior qualities, their interior qualities, their type of descriptors, their type of negative descriptors, and then what happens to them in each part of the book, be it Act 1, Act 2, or Act 3. In addition, I have something called wins. What each character wants, what each character intends to do, their purpose, and their needs. I call it their win. I had to understand the main characters and what their wants, intents, and needs are. What I tried to do was to have 1 or 2 words that emphasize or characterize their win, or characterize their intent, and characterize their needs. I failed sometimes. I couldn't get it down to 1 word. but it really helps me when I go back to the editing process, hopefully another 4,000 or 5,000 words, maybe 4 or 5 days, I'll be done. Then when I go back to the editing, to make sure I highlight each one of the characters' wants, intents, and needs. So I'll start with Revka. She's the main character. She looks like a young Audrey Hepburn from the movie A Roman Holiday. Her main want is to fix the world. It's also to be respected and to be listened to. And she wants to have a position of authority. At the beginning, she's an elementary school teacher, even though she graduated cum laude from Oxford. Her intent is that she has moral courage. She is willing to do the right thing at the right time. One of her flaws is that she doesn't say the right thing at the right time. She is the conscience of the story. And her need is, one, to control some of her outspoken impulses. In addition, she has to learn that she doesn't always have to be right. Finally, she needs to be accepted by the two main male characters in the story, her father and Rami. Now, getting to Rami. Rami wants to exude confidence and vibrato, and he wants to belong to a group. However, that is not what he needs. He is a kind, empathetic individual, so that counters, it's not aligned to what he wants to be and who he is. His other intent or his purpose is a sacrifice. He is going to sacrifice himself for the greater good and for his love. He needs to have someone that he could love. He needs someone who will believe in him, and he needs to have confidence in himself, and an authentic confidence, not a confidence that comes from your group, but a confidence that comes from within. Next, Israel, Revka's dad. His superpower is that he's very competent. He has the ability to change, and his love for his daughter. His main want is he does want to be a good dad and to have a loving relationship with his daughter. He wants to protect her from the evil, which are the institutions, in some ways what he represents. And he is loyal to these institutions. So that's where the conflict lies. He's loyal to these institutions, but he's trying to protect his daughter from the corruption of these very institutions. It's the duty to the institutions, because there is a personal cost being loyal to these institutions. What he needs is he has to cleanse himself from his past. He has to learn to speak his thoughts, as opposed to Revka, who talks too much. He's the counterpart, where he speaks too little. He has to come to terms with verbalizing what he has to say by the end of the book. And he needs to have a good, healthy relationship with his daughter. I'm going to talk about Noah. Noah is Revka's best friend. Her superpower is she's a good friend, she knows Revka, and she cares about Revka. What she wants to do is to help her friend Revka to be a friend, and she ultimately wants to survive. Her intent or her purpose is to be an advisor to Revka, to be the voice of reason, and to help Revka pull back from the brink. She needs to listen, she needs to advise, and she's the one source of comedic relief in the story. The three main bad guys. One is the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Cohen. Two, Yusuf, who is the Syrian president. And then Fermi Ado. First, the Israeli Prime Minister. His superpower is he's politically savvy, he's very intelligent, however, he does not care about his people. All he wants is power and control, and he doesn't care about any ramifications. He doesn't care what happens based on his behavior. Cohen's intent is to burn, destroy, and to manipulate people. And he needs to kill, he needs to survive. Unfortunately, he is pure evil. For the Syrian president, he's a 23-year-old who's taken over for his dad who just died. His superpowers are he's highly intelligent, he's very good at manipulation, and he has a strategic mind. However, he, like the Israeli prime minister, does not care about the people. He just cares about himself. What he wanted initially was to build a life away from politics. He wanted to be left alone, study abroad in England, and he wanted no pressure and to have an aimless life. His purpose now, after his dad pulls him back in, is to be as vicious and cunning as his father, and to finish the work of his father, because on his father's deathbed, the father said his regrets. Yusuf is going to manipulate at any price. His needs are to keep a promise to his dying dad, to prove to his dad / himself that he's competent, and to have a purpose. Finally, the Egyptian president, Ado. His superpowers is he's very decisive, he's experienced at the levers of power, but he, like the other villains, he doesn't care about his people. He just cares about his wants, which are survival, to remain in power, and his legacy as a quote-unquote hero. His purpose is to do anything he can to stay in power and retain power. And he wants a long-lasting legacy to fuel his ego, to gain power, and to have more control. I've created 3 terrible villains, and I have the story for you. I went to my writers group, and when I created these characters, I felt terrible that I created these people that were, in some ways, they had good characteristics, like they're very intelligent or they have a strategic mind, but they were terrible human beings. And I didn't like myself being able to create them. I went to my writers group and I said, what do you think of this? And I also talked to a couple of my friends at the library. And they said, no, I think that's about right. I can understand that type of person. I can understand a person who does that. Unfortunately, I've created some characters who are true to life, who are evil, and this is something I realized that I needed to, there's themes in this book that I wanted to talk about. And I didn't want these 3 characters to come out better off than they were at the beginning. These characters should be taught a lesson, and they should be punished, each one of them. The Israeli prime minister, the Syrian president, and the Egyptian president. At the end, they get taught a very hard lesson, and they are punished. The Israeli prime minister is politically destroyed, which is as good as killing him, because he doesn't have access to power. The Egyptian prime minister is killed, and he's taught a lesson, and he's punished. Also, the Syrian president is killed in a coup. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I talked about the update, which I'm in the process of finishing a tank battle and an aerial battle. Then I talked about the wants, intents, and needs of my main characters. It really helps me as a writer to think about who they are, what they want, their purpose, and what they need, and how they change throughout the novel. This is the My Writing Diary podcast. I'm Bill Wong. See you on the pages.